Well, welcome, and thank you all so much for coming. How many of you did I see at lunch? Oh, you guys are the best. Thanks for, you got to be a shill to get the crowd in. How many of you are senior living operators? You're actually operating in the facility? Fantastic. My name is David Thompson. I'll be giving a presentation today on how light affects the brain and body, especially of seniors, but it's also going to include your staff, your residents, and you and your family. Give you a little bit of background on me. I owned a lighting company, and about 15, 18 years ago, I ran into a presentation at the International Lighting Show on how light affected the brain and body. And at the time, we were just doing LED retrofits. And I looked at the market and I said, hey, this is only about a 10-year, maybe a 15-year market, because everybody's going to convert and LEDs last forever. And so I was looking for the next opportunity, and I noticed a poorly attended session on how light affected the brain and body. And I went to that and instantly was captivated. So we're going to get into a little bit of a detail. It's going to be a little bit of a data dump for you. I went into a deep dive. I have over 3,000 peer-reviewed research papers on the topic of how light affects human physiology and neurology. And about 10 years ago, it became very personal. My father fell, broke his hip, went into skilled nursing, and passed away a few weeks later. Very common story. I'm sure you've all heard it, and maybe all have had relatives who've experienced that. So it became very personal at the time. And then I found a study on how lighting affected fall rates. And obviously that's why some of you are here today. So how many of you are concerned with your star rating? Show of hands, obviously. How about fall rates? Do you measure your fall rates? Everybody? How about depression? So it is pretty key for you. How about staff alertness and staff retention? Right? Everybody wants that. We've got huge turnover in a lot of markets, and especially in this market as well. So let's get into it. I'll give you guys a little bit of a data dump on what this is going to be. When you have questions, there's going to be a QR code at the end. You can scan it. You can reach out to me personally. It's got my personal cell, my personal email, and you can reach out to me directly. I am partnered with Pathogen Focus and Lumen Focus. They've got a booth out there. If you have any more questions, you can come back and see us at the booth as well. And Keith is back there running the camera for me. So if you missed part of the presentation or you want to see it, you can email me and I will get you a link to the presentation. So most senior living facilities are concerned with light levels, but they're not necessarily concerned with what light does to the brain and body of the residents. And that's not just true in senior living. That's true everywhere, in every building you're in. In fact, the lights that we see in here are having your body produce melatonin. It's why a lot of these training sessions seem to get a little bit boring, so feel free to grab some more coffee when you need to. But what we know is that light is the primary timekeeper for the body, for sleep, for metabolic rates, etc. And I know all of you are looking at fewer falls, less depression, calmer evenings, fewer dementia outbursts, and light can affect that as well. Better appetite. You're all concerned, I'm sure, with seniors who have cachexia, where they seem to eat a little bit less and less and less as they age. And then obviously we want real sleep, and we want that sleep at night so that your third shift workers are not stressed and strained. And let's see how light can affect that. I'm going to touch a little bit on the science behind it. I'm not going to go into a deep dive. I don't think you really need to know that at this point, but if you want to go into a deep dive, we'll go as deep as you want. There'll be time for questions afterwards. I'm going to blow through this pretty quickly so that we can give some time for that. So just to give you some of the basics, think of light as something that operates a gate that either moves to alert the body or to sedate the body. And if you look at the orange line there, that's peak melatonin production. Melatonin doesn't keep you asleep, but it triggers sleep. It triggers that process that starts what's kind of a complicated process in the brain that tells part of your brain to slow down and not jump around when you're having a dream and you're actually moving through, some room in your dream, so that you don't injure yourself. Your brain kind of deconnects. But melatonin triggers it, and it's essential for triggering sleep. And on the other side, you've got cortisol. That's the blue peak. And you want those peaks. This is what a natural peak would look like. So you want bright, blue, rich days. Blue light suppresses melatonin, tells your body to produce dopamine, cortisol, serotonin. It's not just the melatonin, it's what it's telling you to do on the other side. And then you want a warm, dim evening. Now, if you think about this, since the dawn of time, our active, productive light source was daylight. And our sedating, chilling out, sleeping was either complete darkness or firelight. Firelight has no blue in it. And that blue is a very narrow range of blue. A lot of the LEDs that you see go farther in the other direction of blue, which actually can be damaging to the retina, to the macula part of the eye. So a lot of LEDs, if you're cranking up too much blue in the wrong spectrum, it can actually be dangerous to the eye. But you want to make sure that your residents are active during the day and then they're sedate at night. So what does the science look like? The science is fairly compelling. 98% of scientists, and this is from scientists who produced 5 or more peer-reviewed research papers. This is not, hey, we've got mood lighting. This is actually legitimate science. Like I said, I've got 3,000. There's over 25,000 research papers on the topic of how light impacts health, mood, physiology, neurology, drug interactions. We now know that about 72% of all psychotropic drugs are impacted by the light, and that includes your dosage, your side effects, etc. So 95% will say you need those regular circadian cycles, those sleep-wake cycles that are going to help you maintain and keep your health at optimum levels. 95% said that blue light decreases your melatonin at night. It's clear. They take saliva swabs. So when you're looking at your phone, within 2 hours of going to bed, it shuts off all melatonin production. And it takes about 2 hours to restart it. And it stops 75% of your melatonin within 5 minutes, 74%, and it stops 100% within 10 minutes. So not only is it the melatonin that you're looking at, but it's also the dopamine, cortisol, serotonin, your alert, awake, alive, happy, active hormones. You're telling your body it's daylight. In one of the oldest books, the Bible, the first thing that God said is good is where he separates the daylight from the nighttime. And we're combining both at night, and it's bad. It's not good. So that is changing the way your body wants to operate. There were 17 universities. I think when I first started looking at this, there were 17 universities that got together and said that almost every physiologic and metabolic function is under some degree of retinal control. You have specialized cells in your retina that say this is daytime or this is nighttime. And that changes all these metabolic processes. We're going to talk about morning light in just a second and how that impacts you as well, and why that's a little bit different. So they all agree, evening light should have as little as blue as possible. People who watch TV in their bedrooms, anybody here have TV in the bedroom before you go to bed? So 3 to 5 years shorter lifespan. So that blue light you're looking at is not healthy at night anywhere. And if you're going to have a TV in the bedroom, I would recommend you get an OLED TV. They're more expensive, but an OLED TV has about 70 to 80% less blue enriched light. There's also glasses you can buy. There's about 4 different manufacturers. If you email me, I'll send you my sleep email, which tells you how to improve your sleep. When we go into a facility, we not only replace the lights, but we will train your staff on site. We take a video that you can give to your staff on how to improve their light hygiene at home, and obviously how you can improve your light hygiene. If everybody had 4 to 5 hours outside every day, I'd be out of a job. But we spend about 97 to 100% of our lives indoors, and we're getting light that's all screwed up, and your body's saying, what's going on? We've really only had electric light for about 125 years. Prior to that, it was daylight and firelight, and that was it. So why are seniors hit the hardest? As you age, your lens yellows. This is the body's natural response to protect itself from ultraviolet rays. Now, the problem that you have in your senior living facilities is you have some residents who've had cataracts, they've had lens replacement, and so they don't have this yellowed lens, but others you have it. And as you age, there are a lot of things that happen. Rhodopsin, this is it's a compound in the eye that allows you to go from a bright room to a dark room. When you're 18 years old, you can go from a bright room to a dark room, and you see the change right away. At about 85, it could take you 30 minutes for that compound. Rhodopsin allows you to see in dark light or in darkness. It takes about 30 minutes for that to recharge. So imagine your resident who's going to they get up in the middle of the night. About a third of all falls occur at night. They get up, they flip on the lights, they go to the bathroom, they flip on that light. It's this bright light, and now they do their business, and they shut off the light, they walk back out, and what happens? 30% of all falls occur at night. So we want to reduce that. We want your residents to sleep at night and have safer nighttime lighting. So they produce less melatonin as you age. And again, we spend 97 to 100% of our lives indoors. But you can see that's a huge difference in the amount of light that lens is going to allow in. So what does a warm, dim light actually do for you? And a lot of your communities were designed with very dim light. I went into a facility which shall remain nameless, a community which shall remain nameless, and we took measurements. We'd take a measurement before, we survey the staff before, then we'd take measurements after, and we survey the staff after. The hallway, I'm sure it was a well-meaning architect, and I've trained, 20 different architect firms, but it was a well-meaning architect, and they want it to be nice and calm for the residents, right? The light level in that community was lower than the OSHA standards for a picking environment in a warehouse. So they were making it super dark. What happens? The residents they're producing melatonin during the day, they're wandering around during the day, and then what happens? They're wandering around at night. They're not getting good rest at night. They're not active during the day, and they're obviously continuing, and that's what the issue is with sundowning. Now, the good news is this can run in reverse. So, for those of you in northern climates, and obviously this is leading age here in Illinois, Iowa, we have a few residents from Wisconsin, Ohio, all above the Mason-Dixon line. Fall rates increase dramatically in the winter. Why is that? Not only do fall rates increase, medical errors increase in the winter. If you look at some of the studies that were done in Alaska, the rates for medical errors go way up in the winter, they go way down in the summer. Why? They're getting alerting light that's keeping them more awake in the summer. So higher fracture risk as well. So clinical studies show light can reduce falls 43%. For those of you who are at lunch, you heard me say and hand you out the sheet, or provided the sheet that shows that falls. There was a study that was done by Harvard showing that putting in even rudimentary, technology and research was kind of limited. This was about a 10-year-old technology, and it still managed to reduce falls 43%. We do things much more advanced now. We now know that we're able to write light prescriptions, right? It's the software that runs the light. It's the way that light is coming in a variety of different manners. So it's not just the intensity, it's the spectral power distribution. It's how you slice that light up. So think of the colors in a rainbow making white light. You got to give more of this color and a little bit less of this color, and you can vary that. And that's what we do. We know that we can impact Parkinson's, macular degeneration, all of these different, including myopia recently. All of those can be affected by the type of light that you're giving that person. So 50% fewer falls in a hospital setting. That was a recent study, just came out a few months ago. 50% less sundowning, 53% fewer dementia outbursts. So picture your community. How many of you are in memory care? Okay, so memory care is huge. 5 times higher fall rate if you are experiencing dementia. 5x higher fall rate. So it's pretty critical to make sure that you're implementing anything you can do to reduce that for your residents, to make sure that you have lower turnover, lower issues with, less, your sales staff can actually talk to more people because they have more time with them. So fewer dementia outbursts. Imagine your community, the laughers, the screamers, the criers, the violets. That lowers down significantly. 60% lower depression, 20% greater pain tolerance with the same amount of meds. Meds are, especially antidepressants and pain meds, are typically fall risk increasing drugs, FRIDs, and we want to lower the quantity of those. So depression is absolutely key in maintaining that, and there are ways to do that naturally with light. So I had a conversation with a chief operating officer of a large organization that has a number of communities that shall remain nameless. And I said, hey, I've seen the studies, and benzos and trazodone not only double fall risk, but they have other implications as well. And I was talking to her about how light could impact that. And she goes, oh, that doesn't matter. We only use SSRIs. And I said, oh, okay. And I hadn't really researched SSRI. So now I look up SSRIs. It turns out not only do they double fall risk, but a couple of studies have shown that the risk of hip fracture increased with SSRIs by as much as 674%. So not only do the SSRIs double the fall risk, but they're actually more dangerous for fracture. What's the median age or median timeline for passing away after a fracture from a fall? About 7 months. So you want to definitely limit those. So morning light is incredibly effective. There are numerous studies. I saw this in an NIH presentation that was done by a fantastic researcher, and she showed that 20 minutes of morning light exposure. Morning light is different. It has different ratios of those colors. It's got different intensity. It's got different compounds of light in there that are in the visible and invisible spectrum. She showed that 20 minutes of morning light exposure is as effective as any of those other antidepressants. So what do I recommend when we go into communities, we raise the shades. I want that staff raising the shades, getting as much natural light in there as possible. Now, there is a little bit of a caveat there in that a lot of windows have coatings on them that will reduce the type of light and the color of light and the spectrum that you're getting in there. You're not going to be able to regulate that. You're certainly not going to measure that, but at least get them as much bright light first thing in the morning. I mentioned earlier about the cells in your retina. About 28 years ago, they discovered that about 2% of your retina is comprised of cells called iPRGCs. They're intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, actually nerve cells. They're not vision cells. So that 2% of iPRGCs is looking for that spectrum. Every time you're in any kind of a lit environment, it's saying, what are we looking at? Is it daytime or is it nighttime? And it's adjusting your processes, protein exchanges, metabolic processes, your mitochondrial energy release is all controlled by those cells. So the great thing about morning light, or any kind of light in general, is there's no side effects. There's really no side effects from being exposed to it. So you're not looking at a pharmacologic input where you've got to look at how does this drug interact? And one of the problems, we have a neuroscientist on our team, Doug Steele, and one of the problems with drugs is that they'll do the study on one drug. What they don't do the study on is how multiple drugs interact with each other. The average senior's on 5 medications. And so those interactions are not studied nearly to the extent that a single drug is studied. So you've got lower fall risk simply by getting more exposure to morning light, more energy during the day. It spikes that mitochondrial energy release. And what do you want to do? You want to not destroy their sleep architecture. I had a friend of mine whose father passed away. He went to the VA. It was a VA hospital. New doctor, was not really didn't have the experience that she probably needed, and they put him on an antidepressant. He said, all right, well, I'm still depressed. They put him on another antidepressant. Well, I'm still depressed. They put him on another antidepressant. So I asked him, I said, how many meds are you on? He said 6. 5 of the 6 were antidepressants, all of which research showed ruin sleep architecture. And what happens when you sleep? Your sleep runs in these 90-minute cycles. And you want these nice, deep, what we call delta peaks on those cycles. And each of those cycles has a primary and secondary function, and they have stages in them. And the first 3 cycles are primarily physiologic. They're for your body, your muscle repair, your hormones that control your fat metabolization, your heart rate, your blood pressure. All of those are in those first 3 cycles. So think about this from the perspective of somebody who's living out on the prairie 200 years ago before natural light, or 1,000 years ago. You have to have muscle repair, you have to have relaxation, you have to have, your body in shape in case the tiger hits or the bear attacks, right? The second, or the next phase, so now you're at 4.5 hours, now you start the next phase, is adults need 5 of those 90-minute cycles. A teenager in maximum neuroplasticity needs 6. They need 9.5 hours. So those cycles, when you get in that 4th cycle, your brain shrinks 8%, spinal fluid comes in to fill the gap. There are these cool little jets that are washing out your brain. It's called brainwashing, is one of the terms that was used. And it's flushing out these compounds from when your brain is repairing itself as you sleep at night. And what is one of the things that's flushing out? Beta amyloid proteins, beta amyloid protein plaques are correlating with dementia, and it flushes out your brain and cleans it out. And one of the main areas that your brain is repairing itself is in areas that control anxiety and depression. If you sleep less than 6 hours a night, you are incredibly more likely to be depressed, anxious, have psychotic episodes. Think about your seniors. Think about your children, your grandchildren. The CDC just came out with a study recently that showed that 54% of teenage girls are clinically depressed. 1 out of 5, 20%, have seriously considered suicide in the last 2 months. It's a travesty. It's a national emergency. And what are we looking at? They're looking at their phones. And the CDC said it's the phones, it's social media, close. Social media is the bait on the hook. What's the hook? The phone. The light in the phone shuts off their melatonin. Now they fall asleep from exhaustion. They don't fall asleep from a natural sleep-wake cycle. The average teenager today sleeps less than 6 hours a night. And we need to have some serious conversations at a big level to make sure that some of that gets taken away. Not only does it shut off their melatonin, now it's producing dopamine, cortisol, serotonin, the other hormones. And now they've also got stress. So you got more cortisol. I'm not getting the likes. I'm not getting the views I need. And so that's why we have a crisis, a national crisis, I believe, of mental health for teenagers, especially teenage girls. So I stole these off LinkedIn. There's some great guys on LinkedIn. How many of you have seen Andrew Huberman? I know we got one Huberman fan. Huberman's great, but there's a bunch. I just stole this from a couple of LinkedIn people. And if you find me on LinkedIn, you'll see that I repost some of the guys that I like that are into this. But you can see what Bright Morning Light does. It's just kind of a nice graphic. And then the morning metabolic reset also is a pretty interesting graphic to look at. Again, we're spiking your mitochondrial energy release when you get that morning light exposure. It's pretty critical for you to have. And when you look at that morning light, it sharpens your mental clarity. And, we think about sleep as optional. Even Elon Musk said, I only sleep 4 hours a night, or, a lot of politicians are bragging about how little they sleep. That's horrific. You're actually more productive when you get adequate sleep. Just a 2-hour differential in a regular sleep cycle. So let's say you want to sleep from, the ideal is let's say 10 to 6. You get 8 hours. And the reason why we say 8 hours If you do the math, it's actually 7.5, because it takes you 15 to 20 minutes to get into one of these cycles. And when I talked about those stages of each of those cycles, one of those stages is REM sleep. There's almost no REM sleep in the physiologic first 3 cycles. You've got to get in the last 2. And REM sleep is where your brain is repairing itself in areas that control anxiety and depression. Just a 2-hour difference in a regular sleep cycle impacts your HbA1c, so your insulin production, impacts your blood pressure, your heart rate. Your heart rate will change by 4 beats a minute just by a 2-hour difference. So maintaining a regular sleep-wake cycle is also critical for good health. And yes, I'm a hypocrite. I don't do all this stuff all the time. I'll change my sleep cycle. But the closer we can get to the right cycle is where you want to be. So here's some changes any community can make, and most of them a lot of them are free. Time your caffeine and food. Caffeine and food bond to your adenosine receptors, which is one of the ways that your body tells you to go to sleep, that you're tired by the end of the day. And if you get exposure to bright light and you keep that caffeine in that food for about 60 minutes after the residents wake up, they'll be more active during the day and you'll get better sleep at night. Turn daylights on. If you can get them outside, I know a lot of you are in memory care. You've got those corralled patios. Get them outside as soon as you can after they wake up. I've actually recommended to some of the communities to pull out your shades in memory care. You're going to get complaints. Seniors are more sensitive to the level of light that they get, so they're going to say it's too bright, but it will achieve your objectives, and it's memory care, so they'll probably forget by the next time. Am I allowed to say that? And then protect the night. Wind the light down. I have instructed certain communities, and every community is unique, right? Some have windows in the right spot, some don't. Some have, really good lighting that you can easily retrofit. Just some are in woods, some are out in fields. So light exposure is different. So every community is unique, but I tell them, look, start corralling with light. Darken the areas that you want to push those residents out of into maybe areas that have a warmer light that you've set up. And this doesn't have to be a retrofit into what we call bio-optimized or human-centric lighting. Does not have to be expensive. There are very expensive options out there, but it doesn't have to be that way. We just retrofitted a facility that had a very expensive system that also shall remain nameless, or the manufacturers will probably sue me. But they had put in for 25 beds, so it's a 2-story memory care wing of a CCRC, and they'd put in a system that was well over $120,000, $150,000, and it had malfunctioned. One of the pieces, it was a very complicated system with all these interactions. One of the pieces had malfunctioned, and the whole system was screwed up. And the system was blasting out at weird times of day. It was waking up residents at night, sedating them during the day. Everything was bad, and it was damaging the maculas of residents who had predisposition towards macular degeneration. And this is, by the way, not just common to senior living facilities. Keith and I looked at a facility in New York City where they were proud of a very similar system to the one I saw in this nursing home. And they were very proud of it. And when we looked at the protocols for what they were doing, they were burning out the maculas of anybody in that office. It was just a regular office space. Anybody who had a predisposition towards macular degeneration. So making sure you're corralling with light the path, not the room, and mind the night staff. So this is an example of some things that you can do that are very, very practical. We did this in a community, I believe, in Nashville, and I want to show you. So we put my mother, this is actually a picture of my mother's bedroom, and she mocked me when I put in these lights. And she thinks that's the only kind of light that I provide. not realizing that her whole house is lit like that. She's 98 years old and only recently went into assisted living. But when she puts her feet over the side of the bed, it lights up the floor with what we call a non-rhodopsin depleting light, lights up the floor. It's all on motion sensors and timers. She goes and does her business. It lights up the toilet. She comes back and it all shuts off automatically. So this is a diagram of what we did in this community in Nashville. So here we had a queen size bed. If they get off on this side, it lights up the floor. If they get off on this side, it lights up the floor. They had a barn door. They didn't have a regular door, so it was kind of funky. Sometimes we will actually outline the outline of the door. So when they wake up and they're, oh, there's the door, and they can walk right through, and it lights up the outline. And it's all on dimmers and timers and motion sensors. And this was just a regular night light, motion sensor again, motion sensor, and then it lights up the toilet. Here's an example of the toilet bowl. And you want, when you're looking for these, you want a real warm light. We did these rooms for, this is really reasonable, $160, I think, was to do this entire room. So you're not talking about a giant expense. You reduce one fall. I've seen some numbers on lawsuits, and I really wanted to attend the other 8 o'clock session on lawsuits for wrongful fall. But I've seen lawsuits as high as $700,000 and then as low in the $70,000 to $80,000 range. So one wrongful fall is paid for your entire facility to get redone with lighting. And in this case, they had spent well over $100,000 in their memory care, which we fixed, and we're able to provide them with, like I said, there's wide variances in pricing. We provided them with a more economic model for their human-centric bio-optimized lighting, and they only spent like $45,000 for 4 wings, 4 floors. It's a huge difference in price. So when you go into a place, you're never going to do this, but if you have a lighting designer or you have, most electricians are primarily installers. They're not going to be able to give you the metrics that you want, but this will kind of give you kind of an idea. You want lights, an easy thing to look for when you're putting in your lights, when your maintenance guy is putting in the lights, you want high CRI, color rendering index. You want this at home too, by the way. But a high CRI, as you age with that yellowing lens, you're looking at your peas and they're gray. You're looking at your carrots and they're gray. The food doesn't have bright, vibrant colors. And we've always known for years that color is a big indicator of appetite. So your seniors are looking at this and the food just doesn't look appetizing. So high CRI pumps in the right kind of colors to make the carrots look orange and the peas look green, and it makes the food look much more appetizing. And this is very common. This was actually, this was in that DIM facility that we did in, I think it was in Florida. And one of the things that a lot of manufacturers do is they cheapen on the red. So they have to mix the other colors, and you don't get a high CRI, and they cheapen on the red and on the red output, and you just get a you get a weird look in that community. The food definitely doesn't look good. So one of the things we want to talk about, so that's smart lighting. We put in smart lighting, avoid the MD risk. Turn your smart TVs down 2 hours before bedtime, OLED if possible, if you remember that. And keep the light cooler, so higher Kelvin, so like a 5,000 Kelvin, sometimes even higher, around your workstations. So again, you're shutting down your melatonin for your nighttime staff especially. 2/3 of all medical errors are third shift, and that's in hospitals and elsewhere. So this just kind of explains what that spectrum looks like that I was talking about before. If you're looking at daylight, see how it's got this nice warm or nice regular curve? Then you look at incandescence, it's got almost no blue in it. Fluorescence, that's why we hate them, plus the buzz and the flicker. And then you've got a halogen, obviously another nice warm one, but it's not suppressing melatonin at all. Here's a cool white LED. Now what I want you to notice is, see this baby blue area? That's where you want the peak to be. You don't want the peak this far left. There's too much energy in that, and that's what damages the macula if you're exposed to it too long. There are some experts in the field, some academics, who think that we are going to now have an asbestos level problem with some of the lights that we're putting in, because we're pumping in blue light at night that changes cancer rates, etc. It's all bad. So I want to let's see if I can make this play. So this is a community that my mother was in. This is flicker. So put your phones on slow motion, record the lights in your community, play it back, and see if you have flicker. Flicker triggers migraines. It also triggers malaise, fatigue. Your brain has an autonomic nervous system that's operating in the background, that's telling you to breathe and do all this other stuff. But when it sees flicker that you can't see with the naked eye, what does it do? It sucks up your processing power. It literally makes you 10 to 15% dumber if you're in, if you skipped your coffee this morning, but if you're in a room that has significant flicker, it sucks up your processing power. And that was in, I kid you not, that first one that I just showed you was in my neurologist's office. I was actually on the other side, but I went in the waiting room, and that's the neurologist's office at a hospital that had just been built. They did not measure for flicker. So this is a different video, and this is actually in CCRC, and that's what their whole work areas are for their staff. So the staff, is the hallway was fine, but as soon as you went into wherever the staff was, the lights were flickering like crazy. And this one is actually my favorite. So in this particular, in this second video, or this third video, we were approached by a physician practice CEO, and he wanted to test me out. I didn't know it was his mother, but he sent me to do his mother's house. So I said, no problem. I didn't know it was his mother at the time. He said, one of our patients. And it's not a giant practice. He had, I think, 50 or 60,000 patients. So a decent sized practice, but not huge. I go to do his, do this house, and I walk in, it's Florida, and it's dark, and it's middle of the day. And I said, why is it so dark in here? And she goes, well, I've had sunk headaches, which are a different type of headache, kind of similar to migraines. I've had sunk headaches for 15 years, and I haven't been able to get out of bed. I have to go to sleep. I have to lie in bed in the dark from 11 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. And I'm like, all right. I wasn't even thinking about flicker at the time. I wasn't thinking about it. And we redid her house. And for some reason, we just took a picture of this particular spot. And you can see that flicker back there. All of her lights apparently were doing that. So fast forward 2 weeks, and I called the CEO, and I said, hey, how's that patient doing? He said, he called me, and he said, I can't believe it. He said, it's actually my mom. And I went there on a Saturday afternoon, and I said, Mom, what are you doing? Hey, I'm making lunch. Why don't you have the kids come over and let's kind of hang out? And he goes, Mom, I haven't seen you out of bed in 15 years during the day. She says, oh my God, he's given me my life back. Huge. Really kind of cool. So that was a great story. Okay, so train your staff for their personal sleep hygiene. You've got workers who are sleeping less than 6 hours a night. I went into one community, and you had them raise their hands for how many sleep 8 hours? How many sleep 7, 6? We got down to 2.5. There was one guy who was sleeping 2.5, 3 hours a night. How alert do you think he is to take care of your residents, right? He's not. And what kind of mistakes do you think he's going to make? Auto accidents, everything kind of correlates into this. So sleep in complete darkness for your staff. When it comes to eye masks, I've tested probably 30, let's say, 3 dozen, ranging from $3 to $254. $254 for a sleep mask. Now it had lights, it had sound, but it was a sleep mask. The most effective was the $3 one. If you send me an email, I'll send you my sleep email back. And that sleep email has products you can buy. I don't get paid for any of them. But there's 4 different manufacturers who make the really good glasses that block that narrow spectrum of light you want to block. And it'll have the sleep mask manufacturer in there as well. Some of them are on Amazon or elsewhere. But price, and they bulb out. For those of you, we've got big eyelash thing going on. So they bulb out over the eyelashes, so they don't interfere with that. You want to sleep in a cold room. Ideally, it's about 67 degrees. There's different ways you can impact that. You don't have to cool your whole house. You can get cooling. I have a mattress topper that actually cools it down to 67 degrees. I sleep on 67 degrees. No caffeine 10 hours before bedtime. It takes 10 to 12 hours for caffeine to fully metabolize. So do all you want in the morning after 60 to 90 minutes. After you wake up, wait 60 to 90 minutes. Then have all the caffeine you want until noon, 1 o'clock, or 10 hours before you go to bed. And that'll help. Regular bedtime and wake time, we talked about that, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Limit carbs 3 hours before bed. No stress 2 hours before bed. No exercise 2 hours before you go to bed. You need exercise during the day. Interesting little tidbit. People who exercise live longer. People who exercise outside live 3 to 5 years longer than people who just exercise. So test for flicker and put in smart lights at home. This is actually, again, my mother's house to show you what her lights do. So this is daytime. It starts out in the morning. It kind of shifts during the day. It reduces that. And this is dead of night. Really, really warm. Really a nice reddish amber that's there. So that's my QR code. And I'll send you the sleep handout if you want to take a picture of that. It has my personal cell, so don't go crazy texting me. I prefer email, and I'll have my assistant take care of that. But we'll send you the sleep handout. So train your staff on their personal sleep hygiene. Make sure you're watching your own sleep hygiene. Raise those blinds. Get your residents morning exposure. And that's basically it in a nutshell. I should have had this on the last slide, but anyway. So next, light as a census and retention strategy. If you're the people who are admitting your residents, their loved ones are bringing them in, or they're admitting themselves. If you have a CCRC, they're admitting themselves. Tell them what you do differently with your lights. At the Pathogen Focus and Lumen Focus booth, we've got brochures. You can see a sample brochure that communities hand out when they've modified their lights. And they can see the difference in your residents once you've modified your lights accordingly. So you want to use it to attract and retain residents, to lower your risk and liability, lower those fall rates, and again, steady the staff. Get the staff more alert during the day, better rested when they're coming in. An irritated staff member is much more likely to either make mistakes or have abuse or anything else that kind of comes along with that. So what's well established and what's still emerging in terms of the research? We know that it affects your profitability. We know it affects your star rating. We know that it controls the body clock for residents, your family, you, your kids and grandkids. Here's what's still emerging and what's going to get, what we're narrowing down how to tailor that light for very specific outcomes, one of which is medicine dosage and efficacy, side effects, et cetera. 72% of psychotropic drugs have a photopic response. So we already know that, and now we'll be able to mix that light to affect that. We want have a precise impact on medical error rates. We know that research is coming due. Reduce hospital readmissions. This is big for healthcare in general. Long-term staff absenteeism and retention, and your loss ratio. Your chief financial officer is going to love it when your loss ratio gets dropped. significantly because that impacts your insurance rates. So fall prevention protects your margins and your star rating. This is more of a financial slide. You want to avoid that cost for hospitalized falls. Do any of you, I know this is a trend, do any of you have communities where you're partnering with an ACO, an MSO, or a capitated plan? Are you familiar with that? So the physician practices are starting, we got one, the physician practices are starting to partner with communities to run that healthcare through, and that's value-based care. It's based on reducing costs, and they actually get bonused by reducing costs, and one of the things they want to do is reduce fall rates. Falls are very, very expensive. As you can see, $18,000 per hospital fall, and you're looking at about $80,000 if they break a hip. 60 to 80,000 on the back end, depending on where you're located. You want to watch your star rating, improve your census and referrals, and liability and staffing. So you can't measure what you can't manage what you don't measure. Take those measurements. What are your fall rates looking like? What can we do to impact them? And those free changes definitely work. So what does the process look like? Right now, you can get the shades up. Residents get more daylight. Change the diet of their food and their screens. Again, minimizing those carbs late at night. And then your next steps, audit the lighting. What do you got? You got flicker, you got fluorescence, you got to get rid of fluorescence no matter what you do. So get rid of the fluorescence. And consider a smart lighting system. Again, some of them are a lot more economical now. There's more options. Decide on your replacement schedule and measure the before and after. So take a look at we'll set a baseline for what the light is now, set a baseline for what's happening with your team, set a baseline for what their understanding is of light. We went into one community and the staff, we retrofitted the community. Community's done, fixed, right? And after we retrofitted them, we found out that the daytime staff didn't like the fact that the residents were more active during the day. So they were dimming lights during the day, making third shift, so we weren't getting the outcomes we wanted. We had to make sure. Now that was with a manual system. We can do it automatically too, but we did a really inexpensive manual system where they could switch between the EM lights, and the daytime staff was absolutely not having any of it. So we fixed that. So measure before and after, and then take a look at your loss ratios. So with that, I've got about 10 minutes for questions. I'm sorry, what? Yeah, so put your phone on slow motion and record the lights for 5 seconds and play it back. So almost all phones, there was an update that Apple did with Apple 13 or 14, but I think none of you will have 13 or 14 anymore. It might have even been 15, where they changed the flicker rate, so it didn't do that. But other than that, all the Androids and all the other Apples and all the other phones you have on slow motion should play back, and you'll see if there's flicker. And I have not tested this room. It is? All right. So that's super easy, and they should do that at home too. Yes.
Question on the toilet. So it looked like it illuminated it kind of red.
Yeah.
Does that confuse the memory care residents who are trained to look for a white toilet? Just wondering.
So we haven't had any complaints. We haven't had anybody say that they're confused, because they can still see either the landing area or the aiming area, depending on what they're doing. So we haven't had any complaints, but that particular device that we use there is the only one that is rechargeable. So the only drawback with that one, because it sits on the lid, there are some that go down in the bowl. I don't like those because you basically just want to throw them out once a week. So I like the one that goes on the back of the lid, but it's rechargeable. So you have to set a schedule to have them recharged or swapped out. And it's a USB-C, so it's not a big deal to recharge it. And we set that schedule for every 3 months. So the battery lasts a long time because it's only on during the night when they're using the business, and then when they walk away, it shuts off. So it doesn't use a lot of juice, and so the charge lasts a long time. But no complaints for residents. They pick it up instantly. They know where to go. Like I said, especially with seniors, they get used to something and they don't want to change, right? Like I said, my mom at 98 years old mocked me when I put in that light, and now she swears by it. Tells all her friends he sells under bed lighting. That's what my job is, apparently, under bed lighting. So another question. There was one in the back.
Are your slides available?
Am I what?
Your slides, are they available? Slides?
Oh yeah. So if you don't text me. If you email me, I'm going to create a link. We're going to edit it, create a link, and get that back out to you. So, yes, ma'am.
If you can put it on the back of the wall of the toilet, will you still get the same effect?
Yes and no. So we could, in that particular case, remember when I showed you the diagram? It lit up that bathroom really well. The bathroom was really lit up. They really didn't need one on the toilet. I put one on the toilet just as kind of backup. But yeah, it doesn't. You don't have to if the whole bedroom's lit up or the bathroom's lit up. And what I didn't explain was we're lighting up the floor with a non-rhodopsin depleting light. So we're not lighting up something that's up high where they're looking around. And I'm sure you've got designers who've taken a look at your carpet. You don't want patterns that are confusing because they'll tend to follow the patterns, and then that increases fall rates. So you want you want to watch what those patterns are. I've seen some where they actually lead them to the bathroom. There's a stripe leading right to the bathroom from the bed. That's pretty uncommon. So making sure they're not confused. One of the things that we forget about, I mentioned earlier, the autonomic nervous system, which is where your brain is processing. Think about the seniors who are coming into your community, and they have been at home for years. They know where the laundry goes. They know where the toothbrush goes. They know where the kitchen is. They know where they keep the milk in the fridge. That's the autonomic nervous system. They don't have to think about that. Now they go into a community, and the brain has to suck off the processing power that's been implanted for years, and now it's in the more active memory, and they've got to think about everything that they do. So think about that, and making sure you're minimizing those new changes that they have to go through is pretty key. So this lighting makes it brainless, really. Yes, ma'am.
We've retrofitted most of our hallways, and the lumens can be changed. What do you recommend for the hallways?
So lumens is a measure of light output, not color.
Okay.
So what we did in one community is they wanted an inexpensive system, and it looks a little goofy. We took their EM lights, so emergency lighting, which has to be on 24/7. That's fire code, that's building codes. We took the EM lights and made them very warm. We made them, and ideally you want to go down to 1700 Kelvin, but these were 2700 Kelvin. So they're a warmer looking light. We took all the daylights and we made all the daylights 5000 Kelvin. So really high Kelvin lights. So in the day, they've got both. Now, why does it look goofy? Because somebody's walking down the hall and they see warm light, cool light, warm light, cool light. Now, some people don't care. I look at every light, right? Except for, obviously, I didn't do the flicker in here. But some people don't care. But what I told them that they could do is now use that as a sales tool when, and some residents or some people being admitted by their loved ones aren't going to notice, but you should point out to the incoming resident, here's why this is different. We did this different for human-centric lighting, bio-optimized lighting for your loved one. Here's a brochure that explains it. This is intentional to have these different colors. So at night, they shut off the regular lights. They still meet fire code by having the EM lights out, or EM lights on while the other lights are out, and it covers it. As for a foot candle, right, the lumen output or a foot candle, I'd have to look at your facility and see what that looks like. Foot candles, you want to measure the reflectance. So how much is coming off of a white wall? How much is coming off of a gray wall? How much is coming off the carpet? It would be impossible for me to give you kind of an idea. From a foot candle perspective, I'd say at nighttime, what do you think, 20?
Yeah, it's
20 foot candle?
And by more to temperature and some other things. But if you're looking at color tint, if you have the ability to change that color tint.
You do have the ability to change the color temperature? You do? Okay.
That's still a little bit of a complex. Essentially, we want a little bit more blue in the cooler color tint during the day and then roll it back down towards the nighttime. But it takes some very, very precise timing on the duration and the intensity of the time that we do that blue peak to avoid some of the issues with the the macular and things. But
So
with us afterwards, to give us a little bit more information on the system, we can try to tune that. It's not as simple as just, okay, I can tune my lights and I want it nice and white during the day, tune the white, and then at night I'm going to roll it back. It's different by stages of areas, and there's some precise programming. If the system's capable of doing that automatically. Is it a
programmable system? No. Okay, it's a manual system. Okay, yeah. If you send me an email, I will take a look at what you've got. Take a picture of it, of the unit and the control box or whatever you've got, and send it to me. And take a picture of a hallway, and I might be able to give you something just by looking at it. So.
At least the best case protocol. I mean, that's.
What's that?
At least the best case protocol.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got what you got.
You do not want. You do not want to blast 6,500 Kelvin all day long. It is really bad, and it creates problems not just for macular degeneration, but it creates stress. There's all kinds of other things. So you want to vary that. Yes, ma'am.
What is the process for you to come to do an evaluation?
We come in and we do the evaluation. I take pretty precise metrics. You remember the one where I showed you the red? So I take what kind of light, what color is there, where are the windows, what are the light levels, the foot candles. And foot candles are kind of deceiving. Foot candles are not the way your eye has visual acuity. So, for example, I need my readers inside under warm lights. When I go outside, I don't need my readers. Why is that? Blue light content dictates pupil dilation. When your pupils constrict, you have greater visual acuity. When it's dark, they open up and you have greater what we call retinal spill. So we have to look at that, see where the light's coming in, how it's coming in. We do those measurements.
It's a matter of just contacting and setting up.
Yeah, exactly.
And where are you located? We're in Peoria.
So we've done work in 22 states. So I am personally based in Tampa. I'm an Illinois escapee. So I was up here for almost 30 years, but moved to Florida. But I'm up here all the time. So it'd be no problem for us to come back and take a look in Peoria. So any other questions? Yes, sir.
You mentioned limiting carbs prior to that time. I might have missed it. Why is that?
So your brain processes compounds as it's repairing itself. Carbohydrates disrupt that. So you don't get the same level of restorative sleep. Same thing with booze, right? When you drink before you go to bed, there's a couple things that happen. One, it dehydrates you. And when you're dehydrated, your body, this is also key for your seniors, by the way, keeping them well hydrated. It's unrelated to lighting. But when your body's dehydrated, it produces adrenaline. So you're coming down off drinking, and now you're dehydrated, and your body produces adrenaline. You've already disrupted your sleep with the alcohol, and it's a double whammy, and it's non-restorative sleep. Carbs are not quite as bad as booze. In other words, day drinking is better for those of you. who were here yesterday. So, right. But no carbs within a couple hours to go to bed. So you can process the carbs. It takes out that insulin spike and helps you in a lot of different ways. So, all right. Well, I think we're out of time. Thank you.